Welcome to Season 4 of E-Commerce Fastlane. This podcast helps resilient entrepreneurs thrive with Shopify. And now on to episode 191.
You're listening to E-Commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Now, this episode is brought to you by Attentive. Now, how do most innovative companies reach consumers? Well, meet Attentive, the text message solution trusted by innovative retailers and e-commerce brands like CB2, Coach, and thousands of Shopify brands. Now, on average, Attentive customers see a 25x ROI and an 18.5% of their online revenue is driven by SMS, so it's very compelling. You can grow your SMS list fast and engage with high-value mobile subscribers with personalized messages that exceed your performance marketing goals. Now, getting started is super easy. Attentive's best-in-class SMS marketing experts will help you quickly launch and scale your SMS program. Now, are you ready for SMS to become one of your top 3 revenue channels? You can learn more how to get started with your free trial by requesting a demo at AttentiveMobile.com. Well, hey there, it's Steve, and welcome back to the E-Commerce Fastlane podcast. Now, if this is your first time listening, this is an e-commerce show where we have honest and transparent conversations about building and thriving with your store powered by Shopify or Shopify Plus. If you're an ambitious, lifelong learner, which you probably are, since you're here today, you're definitely in the right place. Now, new episodes are available twice weekly with your favorite podcast players like Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and many more. You can also stream current episodes, including a very relevant back catalog. I think we're up to 191-ish episodes, so go check that out at ecommercefastlane.com. There's a lot of great partners in the Shopify ecosystem and, the problems they're solving and some great offers and things to take a look at. Now, in today's episode, I'm really excited to have this guest on today. This platform is used by a few brands that I manage inside Shopify. Now, his name is Vikas Bhambri, and he's the Senior Vice President and Sales and Customer Experience for a company called Kustomer with a K, Kustomer, Kustomer.com. Now, they're a top-rated CRM platform that helps leading brands deliver modern customer service experiences, literally to help create customers for life. They're a Shopify Plus certified app partner, which is great, which means they have the scalability and the reliability to be able to power a lot of really notable brands in the Shopify ecosystem. So I think this is going to be a timely conversation. We're moving into Q4 right now, and I think this is important to learn about what Kustomer can do to help during the holiday shopping season and then moving into 2022. So hi, Vikas. Welcome to E-Commerce Fastlane.
Steve, thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. And I mentioned a little bit at the top of the show, but I think it's always better from someone, in the C-suite to really, share your perspective about exactly what Kustomer is doing and the sort of problems that it's solving today for Shopify brands.
Sure. No, happy to. And the way I look at it is you mentioned up front, right? You're a brand who's looking to set up a Shopify storefront and you're going to start selling your goods to customers across the globe. Well, unfortunately, things do happen. It's the very nature of business where, something might show up a day later than the customer expected. Something might show up in the wrong size or maybe even damaged. So how do customers then reach out to you, whether it's when one of those incidents occurs or if they just have a general question about your product? And that's where Kustomer, with a K, as you mentioned, the platform comes in and really allows you to deliver a modern customer experience around these service issues to those customers at scale. And so when we look at it, we look at 3 key tenets to delivering that amazing experience. One is you have to be available where your customers want to communicate with you. So no longer can you as a brand dictate that we're only going to take phone calls or emails. You really have to live in this omni-channel world of being available on social media, i.e. Facebook Messenger, Instagram, And if you're a global brand, you probably want to be on WhatsApp as well. SMS, email. So you want to be on all the digital touch points, and I didn't go through all of them, that your customers want to engage with you. And the other key thing is you want to maintain that fluidity of conversation where the customer might want to even jump around. They might want to start out chatting with you on your website, and they want to continue the conversation because they've left their desktop via SMS and back and forth. So that's the first key tenet. The second is really bringing together all this amazing data about your customer. So not just the conversations you're having with them, but then tying into Shopify, bringing in all that order data, that rich data that you have about them, what orders they've placed, etc., bringing that all into one place. And lastly, is giving you all the requirements that you will have as you scale your business to support a growing customer experience team from a support perspective. So things like routing of those conversations to the right team agents, being able to escalate them, report on them, etc. Now, bringing all of this into one platform then allows you to either have a customer experience professional, whether you call them an agent or a stylist or a guru, or using automation to then support your customers with some of those inquiries that I talked about up front, right? Whether it's Wizmo or something's damaged, etc., all the way through that customer journey.
Right. No, I absolutely love that. I think I'm going to scramble a lot of notes today because I think that's really important. Being available where your customers are and just thinking about the omnichannel experience. Totally agree with you on that. I just love the idea that you're giving a single view for an agent, as part of the customer support team to be able to see the data inside Shopify. So it sounds like there's through APIs, there's a two-way sync between the two. And then, you can almost empower agents to actually just make decisions and help. Like you said, a delay issue or sizing, a damage, upsells and things can happen like dynamically, probably right from within the platforms. I think that's pretty exciting.
Absolutely. No longer do we want to live in the day and age where, somebody is trying to be super helpful and their answer is, I'm afraid I can't see that information. Right. That is, no longer something that any consumer will, tolerate. And the next part of that then is being able to see the data, but then taking action on it as well, right? So empowering that customer experience professional to do a refund or order next size up or whatever it might be that the customer is actually trying to address.
Love it. So let's talk a little bit about the founder's journey, because I think it's always fascinating to me. I'm in a unique position because I get to meet a lot of C-suite and founders and in these different platforms that connect to Shopify and just why they built what they built. And I just would love to understand like what you believe uniquely positions the founding team, I guess, on a couple different points. Number one, to have the desire to want to build this platform. And then maybe number two, where did all the expertise come from them? And then, the team and the engineering side of it to actually build this platform.
This is super exciting, for me being on the sales and customer experience side. And when I decided to start my journey with Kustomer over 4 years ago and partner with Brad Birnbaum and Jeremy Surreal, our two co-founders, they are amazing technologists and have built platforms at scale. But the exciting thing for me as a lifelong CRM customer service professional was they've done it in this space. So it wasn't that, they've built products that, were doing supply chain or something else in the past. They have spent the last 20 something years building platforms in the customer service arena. So going back to 1994, when they were at eShare Technologies and one of the first chat products out there, right? So that's, that just shows, if, you go back to 1994, yes. You're really thinking about people that were on the bleeding edge doing chat, and they were working with some of the biggest brands in the world, like, AOL, Sprint, Dell, even Microsoft. So that's where they've been focusing their energy and their expertise.
What's interesting too is that Amazon wasn't even alive in 1994.
Isn't that amazing, right?
Yeah.
Is how much it's changed. And, one of the founding members of, delivering SaaS platforms, they built a platform in 2009 called Assistly, which was allowing brands to deliver support experiences. At that time, the old adage of ticketing was what people were doing.
Yeah.
You know, they were competing with the likes of Zendesk and others. And then in 2011, Salesforce actually acquired Assistly and rebranded it Desk.com, which was their support solution for SMBs. So I think they had enough success there where, you know, Salesforce was attracted to them. And they spent a few years at Salesforce after the acquisition, learning a lot in terms of just how, you know, businesses scale and operate, and then decided to kind of embark on their own and address some of the things that, you know, customers had mentioned to them over the years were kind of shortcomings with the old way of doing things, particularly ticketing as a construct wasn't allowing for that cohesive customer experience that brands were trying to deliver. There was still a lack of visibility into who the customer was. So everybody was kind of getting treated the same. And, you know, lastly, as you mentioned, Amazon didn't exist, but the consumer now was living on this thing called the mobile device. So their expectations of where brands were going to be available to them and how they wanted to engage those brands had also changed. So, you know, the old outdated way of doing things no longer applied. And so it needed a fresh, modern approach. And that's when Brad and Jeremy decided to start building the customer platform.
Love it. It's an incredible story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think just gives context to kind of why the platform is there and just like leadership. You feel, for me anyways, when I recommend a platform, I get the warm and fuzzies saying, hey, no, here's the reasons why they built it. It's nice that they're in the same or similar vertical and they've kind of focused not just on any old SaaS product. They've actually built something around from a chat solution all the way through and then into Salesforce and now on to Kustomer. It's interesting though, I think there's another pivotal moment we need to talk about, I think more on the evolution a little bit of the platform. And I think it's with the Facebook acquisition. I think it's part of this process that's happening right now. And are you able to talk a little bit about, you know, why you believe that Facebook, number one, made or is making the investment in Kustomer? And then how does this help both brands now collectively?
Sure. So Facebook announced its intent to acquire Kustomer at the end of 2020. This is completely pending regulatory review, which we're currently going through. But, you know, what Facebook has publicly stated, and it's available on the Facebook blog post, is they have a strong mission to deliver, you know, what's core to their business is giving people the power to build community and bringing them closer together with brands, right? And being able to communicate is key to that. So, you know, over 200 million businesses use, you know, Facebook tools every month to communicate with customers. And so giving them a way that they can do it and deliver those exceptional experiences is key to kind of the future and what, you know, Facebook is looking to deliver to its many brands.
Love it. So, you know, the e-commerce and I'd say even the retail landscape certainly has shifted significantly over the last year or more. And, you know, now with the Delta variant, there's still kind of a lot of interesting apprehensions for traditional retail, but that still is driving a lot of revenue. I think it's going to be an interestingly exciting BFCM and holiday season this year. But I also believe that you may have some notable research. Is there anything that you can share? I kind of snooped around on the website kind of before recording today, but it'd be interesting if you could share any findings about kind of what's happened over the last year. And then is there any kind of forward-looking statements about kind of where we believe we're going to sit by the end of 2021?
Absolutely. And what our data has shown is where we were looking to track from an e-commerce online shopping behavior 5 years from now, this recent experience with the pandemic has fundamentally accelerated. So what I'm saying is where the projections where we were going to be 5 years from now, we are there today. The challenge is most businesses, of course, were not prepared for that change, right? So if you look as an example, our research shows that 71% of consumers reported shopping online more frequently during the past year. So where there was kind of this core cohort of customers, whether you want to call it millennials or, you know, however you typecast your demographic that you looked at as the online shopper, now you're taking both an older demographic now is very comfortable shopping online, frankly, because they were forced to. And it's really across the board. So you're seeing that has really shot up. And I don't think it's going away anytime soon, right? I'm sure you know of people, as I do, who are like, wait a minute, I didn't realize this was so easy. Why haven't I been doing this for years? You know?
Yeah.
I'm still going to department stores.
That convenience factor is something that my wife and I just absolutely love. There's certain products and that, we buy consistently, and now we can go direct, even on a subscription offering. And it just, guess what? It's always there.
That's right. So 85% of people that have kind of moved to this new paradigm have told us that they plan on continuing to shop online even more in the future. So that expansion is going to continue to increase. But what comes with that is the increased customer expectations, because for any brand now, it's, if the customer is comfortable purchasing online, it's now opened up a floodgate of different opportunities to them. And it's only one mouse click away or one app away to the next brand or vendor, right? So it becomes increasingly important that not only do you have to kind of start from the beginning with your supply chain and how you actually manage, the back end of your business, but then making sure you're delivering that amazing customer experience so they keep coming back for more.
Right. I love it. I love that interesting anecdote you mentioned about maybe just like the older consumers, just the fact that they are shopping online. My parents, same way, making purchase online things. Number one, they were forced to do it, and they find how easy it actually is to do. And they're like, hey, it's almost like there's a lot of revenge shopping going on even now as things are kind of opening, but it's just so interesting that they find it easy and they actually like it. I remember my mom's sharing some stuff that she's buying and getting involved in the loyalty program and sending me links to stuff that she's really enjoying. And it's so interesting because that's not her reality. But I think you're right. That does open up an interesting can of worms about, well, now we have different cohorts or demographic of people that still require service. And, I think we'll maybe get into the channel side of how people like to be communicated with probably in the next little while here. But I'm wondering a little bit about maybe some of the differences maybe that you've seen kind of pre-pandemic and then now in the middle of the pandemic. Has there been any service changes that you see, knowing that there's a lot more people that are online shopping in many different cohorts and demographics? And then is it different today versus what it was just before the pandemic?
There certainly has been changes in terms of expectation and almost an anxiety in the consumer base, right? Because look, we're all going through something that frankly, is unforeseen, right? I mean, it's been 100 years since the globe went through this. So I think there's an anxiety that's built up, and people want to know the moment they place that order, they want to know minute by minute where that order is. And I think some of it is because of this anxiety. The other is we're so used to it now. We have food delivery services that give you a minute by minute of somebody's actually preparing your meal, the drivers picked it up and now you can follow them on the map all the way until they get to your home. And then it gives you 15 different options of how you want to engage that person when they deliver it. Do you want to give them a warm hug, or do you want them to just drop it off on the, doorstep and run back to their car?
You got it.
Right. So the moment they place that order, they want to know what's going on. And what happens is if you as a brand are not proactively giving them that information, they are going to come at you hot and heavy. Obviously your front line is most often dealing with that, your customer experience team. And so they have to be prepared to answer those questions, right? Where is my order? When am I going to get it? Is that item truly available? Because we know so many brands have been impacted by supply chain issues. So a lot of that sentiment is taken up in the consumer base. I don't see that going away anytime soon.
I wonder about the common questions that people ask, because I've always thought about, hey, where's my order? If, thanks to Uber Eats and Skip the Dishes and, all these different companies that are doing food delivery, and you're able to follow the driver and who their name is and like the whole deal. It's so interesting. But I wonder if there are common questions about where's my order? And then how does customer handle that? Where if there's consistently a lot of very similar types of questions being asked for agents, I'm just thinking from an efficiency standpoint, how customer handles that. If it's like, do you start originally with a chatbot on a website and have a self-serve model for where's my order, and having a direct lookup? Or do you truly believe that it's better to have a one-on-one relationship through chat, if it's chat on the website or through the other channels?
As you scale your brand, it simply becomes really hard, if not cost prohibitive, to staff a team just to handle these one-off questions, right? And in fact, consumers don't want to talk to a live human agent about something that automation can handle. So a bot is one example of how you can handle this and address it. And once again, it needs to be across channel. So it can't just be on your website. It has to be, somebody SMSs you or somebody goes to Facebook, etc. But yes, consumers have shown that they actually do want to be able to, handle these inquiries without dealing with a human agent. And what that then enables is your team can really be set up to deal with the more complex challenges, which will unfortunately come, right? There will be things that somebody wants to do something truly unique where they want to return one item but keep 5, or, there was a weather event and, everything in that part of the country is backed up. And then you can use your team to kind of go in as a SWAT team almost and address those things, as opposed to kind of some of the repetitive things that where automation can take over and address it with those consumers.
Now, you mentioned a bit about these communication channels, because there's a lot of them, and we're probably not going to rabble them all off here at the moment, but we're all customers. You're a customer, I'm a customer, and I think we all have preferred channels, for customer support. I know for me, someone asked me recently, even on the podcast, and saying, like, how do you like to be communicated with? Because everybody has a channel. For me, it's SMS. People are like, oh, you want us to text you just to find out when my show is being launched, or sponsorship questions? And yeah, you can text me. Here's my phone number. And the reason why for me is that I have hundreds, if not 1,000 emails in my inbox. It gets buried. I don't have notifications turned on my phone for those because there's 1,000 in my inbox. But a text message comes in, it seems important to me. And I think the open rate and the engagement of it, SMS, is very interesting. Same as, for Facebook Messenger. Same idea again. Only people that can message me are usually my friends or brands that I've authorized or opted in to get notifications. And so I just would love to understand, these different types of channels for service, and have they changed or are they changing now because of the pandemic? Yeah.
So the way I, describe it to brands is you want to sell to everybody.
Right.
Then you also have to service to everybody. And no two people, and certainly no two groups of people, want to be treated the same and how they want to, engage you. So that's why it becomes very important, particularly in the digital forums, to be available everywhere. Because otherwise what happens is, if you're not in a certain place, i.e., let's just take Twitter as an example. If you're not engaging your customers around support inquiries on Twitter, well, that's a very natural way where they're going to go and take up if they have any issues with you, right? Because maybe they have a platform, whether they have 100 followers or 1 million followers. And they're going to go let those people know that you're delivering a poor experience. And so if you're not there to meet and greet them when that happens there, then guess what? Somebody else will, whether it'll be a competitor that will chime in on their thread and say, hey, why don't you shop with us? Or the legions of follows that will start going back and forth and then can create a tainted, customer incident for your brand. So that's one example. So I think it is important to be across those things. I think the other is what we saw during the pandemic is, once again, because people were shopping online, is just an increase in people wanting to engage in, relatively near time on things like chat, whether it was in your app or on your website. Mm-hmm. So being able to do some of those things as opposed to picking up the phone and speaking to somebody, maybe because everybody was very comfortable Zooming with people at work. It was like, hey, I'll just go and chat with this brand, as to maybe in the past they would have picked up the phone and tried to speak with someone. And in terms of like specific segments, if you look at like Gen Z as an example, right? They definitely want to use text and email. Millennials prefer email and chat over picking up the phone. So we're certainly seeing those generational differences come into play as well.
Yeah, I could understand even my mom, for an example, and bring her back into the podcast, but she actually really enjoys going to a website, and she just feels it's nice that there's actual a pulse and a heart on the brand when a chat window is available. And I think that's how she likes to engage, because she's in that 65 plus category.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing it more and more, right? Because once again, if they're shopping with you in these places, they're just becoming more and more comfortable with the experience. So why wouldn't they want to be serviced there as well?
Right. So let's kind of pivot a bit over to a story, because I think it's, I don't know, for me, I'm an entrepreneur and we're marketers, and I believe that there's, I don't know, where there's education and inspiration, I really think it can really help motivate a lot of us. And so I don't want to put you on the spot here, but it'd be interesting if you could maybe share maybe a recent journey of a Shopify brand, I guess, that's implemented customer, and, just like, who are they, and, where were they? Why did they make the customer choice? And then, just any specific details that you can share about just their journey on the platform, and, what the future holds for them now that they're, a customer for life.
Sure. The brand that comes to mind is a brand out of the Bay Area called Thirdlove, which is a women's bra and underwear company. And I think really from day one, when I first engaged their team, what I really appreciated was the experience that they wanted to deliver to the female shopper who's shopping for something that is highly personal online, and something that, speaking to the women in my family, doesn't always, kind of fit the sizing chart, right, per se.
Fair enough.
And so I think, one of the things, just how consultative their stylists are in terms of making sure that the woman has the right fit so she feels great. And I think before Kustomer, one of the things that they told us was that the CX team was just all over the place. And what I mean by that is they had their ticketing system, and then they had, their back-end systems, Shopify being one of them, where there was data about the customer. So now when this woman came in and had a question or an issue about her item, the fit stylists were jumping around. So immediately, that experience is not starting off ideal, right? Because it's like, hey, we've all heard this. Let me look you up. Let me find the information. And sometimes, to buy themselves some time, the agent will say, sorry, our systems are running a little slow today. What that really means is I have to go look at 4 different tabs to go figure out who you are,
right,
and what you mean to our brand. What size have you bought? What items have you bought? What styles? So, that's really challenging. And especially as their brand was scaling, I mean, just women across the country, across the globe were starting to catch on to the Thirdlove brand and their differentiated, products and experiences to kind of other more entrenched folks in the market. It was really becoming hard for their fit stylists to keep up. So when they launched on the Kustomer platform, is not only were they now able to engage women across all these different touch points, but they had that integration to Shopify, which allowed them to see all those interactions, but also the purchases as well. And so now the fit stylist was able to see all this information and really deliver that individual woman a differentiated and unique customer experience, to the point where their CSAT, their customer satisfaction, was consistently at 96%.
Wow.
Which is truly, truly exceptional if you wanted to kind of benchmark them.
Absolutely. No, that's good. Thank you so much for sharing that story, because I think that's the inspiration part here, is that they, they made a decision to go down this road, and then they're just motivating and just empowering these fit stylists. I think it's so interesting that that's, the angle that you have, and the fact that everything is all on one screen. We've all experienced what it's like when you get an agent on the phone, or even through live chat, and you just wonder where they go for 3 or 4 minutes. And, thank you so much for your patience. You're right. There's 4 or 5 tabs opening up, trying to validate the account, trying to look things up, look at the carrier, figure out where your package is. Like, there's so many interesting things where you kind of, bring it all in together into one screen. And I think that's the power of Kustomer. I think that's really, really, really amazing. One thing I want to talk a little bit about too is the fact that, they made the choice to go with Kustomer, and obviously they're having like wild success. I have Bulletproof Coffee, which has also made the decision to use Kustomer, and they're extremely happy also. I also think that there are some notable competitors in the marketplace. I mean, we're just, it is what it is. You can do a Google search or go into the App Store in Shopify and look up CRMs and stuff like that. But I believe that Kustomer really has differentiated themselves based on other platforms kind of in the Shopify ecosystem. So are you able to kind of unpack that a bit and just share maybe the mission or maybe some of the feature sets that are very unique to the marketplace that kind of differentiates you to others?
No, absolutely. And, as I mentioned, people have been running contact centers or customer service, teams, however you want to describe it, for well over 20 years, right? I mean, I think if I go back to the origin story is there's two things that have fundamentally changed. One is just the consumer in terms of, I think many brands look at, Amazon as an example, and they have kind of set the tone of what the consumer should expect, which makes it very challenging for a net new brand that is going out there to compete because of, effectively they have a legion of developers and engineers that, if I was starting a new brand tomorrow, I may not have, right? So that's number one, the consumer expectation. The second is technology has come so far forward where we can do some really exciting things that can up-level your experience. And if I can just share like a quick one as an example is we actually can, as these different conversations flow through our platform, we can actually detect the sentiment of those messages that are coming into your platform. So you might be like, Vikas, so what does that help me do? Is if I can detect that somebody is coming in extremely angry, right? The tone of their email or the tone of their chat or SMS is extremely irate. I'll never do business with you again, or this is the worst experience. Then you couple that with, have they placed their order? Where is that order in our life cycle? Is it already out for delivery or has it been delivered? And then what is the value of this customer to my brand? If I can package that all up and then send that conversation to the right member of my team who can handle a really heated encounter with a VIP customer who's got something out for delivery versus maybe somebody who's on the floor for the first time and somebody comes in with a really pleasant, hey, I have a quick question for you, right? So we couldn't do that 20 years ago. Platforms just didn't have that. The technology didn't exist. So that's just an example of how we're taking advantage of just some of the modern innovations from a technology perspective and applying it to this customer experience forum. And, the thing I joke around with my friends who are marketeers all the time, I'm like, we're just now doing what you've been doing on the buy side for so many years. We're now just applying it to that post-sale, quote unquote, customer experience as well.
It kind of reminds me of Grammarly. I have that attached to Chrome and to some of my Google properties and tools and stuff. There's always like a sentiment in there of like the neutral face, the happy face, or the sad face. It's all based on the words that I choose and the language of kind of how I communicate. So I'm always waiting for the smiley face. I want to make sure that, like I'm a very positive, motivated person, but sometimes it's nice to have technology, just have a little sneak peek at kind of like, it's just a quick one-off, or are you adding some soft skills to your communication style? And I think that's great that Kustomer has that technology now to understand the sentiment. I think that's important. And then the appropriate routing, because these difficult conversations are not for the faint of heart. And I think there need to be more seasoned person and having a proper workflow. I call it an SOP, like a standard operating procedure. Like what happens when the irate comes in with a second loss package? That's a whole different conversation versus someone just trying to understand when this other sizes or color is going to be back in stock.
And Steve, you mentioned and you asked me, how do we differentiate? I think what it really boils down to is if you look at the platform, being able to bring in all this amazing data about your customer into one platform. So as I mentioned up front, right, not just the conversation data, but that rich Shopify data. And what we do is it's not just a window layer into Shopify. It's actually ingesting those orders, right? So why is that so powerful? Because now once I have that complete picture of not just a customer, but, all my customers, here's what it enables me to do. It enables my quote unquote automation to use that data. So we talked about bots previously, and so allowing whether it's a chat bot or a Facebook Messenger bot or an SMS bot to be able to use the full profile of the customer. And I often tell people this, they make the mistake. They're like, oh, well, we have a ticketing platform and we use a bot. And I'm like, great. So your bot is just looking at your customer service tickets without any insight into who those customers are. So your bot is actually incomplete. And what your bot is going to do is now Steve and Vikas both come to your website because they've got an issue. Steve's a lifetime member. He's purchased, 50 items from you in the past 3 months. And Vikas bought one item for $5. And you're going to give them both the same recommended solution, because you have no context of what solutions best apply to a VIP customer who's purchased from us 50 times versus somebody who's only purchased one time a $5 item. And once again, that's not how you deliver an exceptional customer experience. And so that's one way you use the data. The second is, now if, let's say, the automation can't handle it, the routing that we talked about. And we've got customers that do some really amazing things in terms of, I want to route first-time customers, so the first purchase they've ever made, because once again, we have context of that. I want to route them to our welcome team. Let them go through like a mini onboarding experience, because not only can we solve that customer's issue, but these folks are purposefully trained to also teach them in the future where on the website they can self-serve these items again. Because at the end of the day, that lowers our contact touch points in the future as this customer continues to purchase from us, right? And language also becomes an issue. If you're dealing with customers across the globe, is detecting the language that they're writing in to make sure it gets to the right team to handle it as well. So we also have intent models that allow us to basically look at that message that's coming in from the customer, even if they don't pre-identify why they're reaching out to you, because you do have that availability on a chat, right? Why are you here? It's a billing issue versus whatever. You may not have that availability on SMS. So basically looking at their message, deriving the context of why they're reaching out, and then using that and our models to hand it off to the right agent team as well. Lastly is when the agent sees it, as you described, being able to see all that information in one place so they have a true picture of who you are, the orders you've placed, the conversations you've had with the brand previously to deliver that amazing experience. So I know sometimes people think I'm getting into technology talk and they're like, oh no, not enough. It's like, but that data just becomes so important. And that's where a lot of the products, that we compete with effectively fall down, is they can't create that true picture of who the customer is.
I love the language and the internationalization option, because I think, Shopify is definitely doubling down with Shopify Market that's just in rollout right now to understand, the duties and taxes and the shipping and the SEO value of top level domains and all the things to pricing and all the things you need to grow a company internationally. But I never really thought about the language we can translate either through machine or through partners and have very language specific pricing by country. But it's very interesting that it sounds like customer even has the opportunity to understand, hey, wait a second, this person's speaking in German right now. I need to make sure this is routed over to the appropriate German agent, because I'm sure there's a lot of multilingual agents out there. That's one of their value props of being on a team, having these language abilities, but then going to the right person. I think that's a really, really interestingly powerful solution.
It is. And as I often talk about, you want to service globally, but act locally, right? And so for that buyer, for that consumer, it shouldn't matter where your people are located and what they're doing, and they want to be treated ideally in their language of choice. The other interesting thing is, in the platform, as you mentioned, is available in over 70 languages across the globe, and some really obscure languages as well, because we've got, customers everywhere. We also support full right to left, folks in Israel, for folks in the Arab world. I think that's extremely useful. Right. As they also, because you also have to think about that agent experience, right? If you're trying to force that agent into an unnatural experience, they're going to not deliver the optimal customer experience as well. So that's another thing that brands have to think about, right? An agent that is well equipped will also deliver an amazing experience for your consumer.
Just more on a side note, it sounds like the customer platform really is an opportunity for growth on the platform. So as a brand grows and scales, we obviously have a sweet spot of customer that makes sense, based on number of agents and, GMV and complexities and things like that. But it's interesting when someone makes the customer decision, maybe they're not international yet, maybe they're not dealing with the language issues yet, but knowing that that power is sitting there and ready to go, and then not having to worry about flipping to another CRM because it doesn't have the language option. That's very, very compelling reason for a brand to consider customer.
Sure. I mean, we see a lot of brands that, start out with a different platform and hit that road bump of, look, I just can't scale with it. Either the technology simply doesn't scale and now, getting slow, basically slow response times for our agents, etc. Or it's not built to support. I'm now launching in Europe and I have, 5 different countries with different languages, etc. And so that then forces that change. What we've seen a lot of brands do is start out on the customer platform, even if it's 8, 10 agents, and then grow with it into the hundreds of agents as they scale across the globe and service different markets.
Love it. So we are nearing the end of the show for today, and honestly, you've shared like a ton of value. If I could turn my camera on and show you how many pages of notes I've scrambled down today, I have this life of learning mantra, and I love to, pay it forward and share with the brands that I manage and internally in Shopify and then, wider through social. I just wanted to thank you, number one, for you've given me a lot of ammunition that I need to share a little wider with, the brands that I'm involved with. But one thing I just want to, I guess with Q4 just kind of around the corner, I just would love to pick your brain a little tiny bit and just, find out like, what are you recommending today? There's going to be this inevitable rush that's going to happen, through Q4. We mentioned already, people are getting more used to shopping online because of the pandemic. There's this kind of residual effect of just the convenience factor and, some older demographics are making decisions now to shop online because they like it and they see how easy it is. And so I just would, love for you to share if you have any insights about what should a brand do today as it relates to your platform or anything else that's on your mind today.
I think this is going to be, as I mentioned, I'm a customer experience professional is one word, but I'm a fan, right? I've been in this space for a long time. It's something I'm extremely passionate about. I think this holiday shopping season is going to be one that is going to be totally disruptive in a way that we've never seen before. And what I mean by that is I think you're going to see more online shopping than we've ever seen.
Yes.
I think we're going to see more challenges because we already know they exist. And thus we're going to see how brands react to those challenges. And that's what's going to separate the pretenders from the people that are going to be here for the ages. And I'll tell you why is we already know as we gear up for this holiday season, so many brands have spent the last 6-8 months focusing on supply chain. Yeah. And we know that that's still a big challenge for a lot of brands. So the key for them as they go into this, I think one, unfortunately, some people feel like they've run out of time. I've spoken to a number of brands who've said, look, holiday shopping's upon us. We're about to go into quote unquote code freeze and I'm stuck with what I have. And I think you and I know whether Shopify or customer, don't let that be your answer, right? You can get 100%. Something up and running really quick. Now, you might not need to go full bore and do everything, but, don't show up for holiday season without a social strategy. Don't show up without an SMS strategy. So maybe you can't rip out your email because you've had it for 10 years and you don't want to touch it right now because of quote unquote code freeze. Don't let that stop you from putting in a different channel because your customers, once again, will want to be there. The other thing as we kind of go into this shopping season is a lot of what we've talked about till now is kind of what I call reactive service, right? How does a brand react when the customer comes to them? I think this holiday season, the brands that are going to, like I said, be there for the ages are the ones who take the steps to be proactive. Because what we have seen, as I said before, is customers react positively to being proactively identified. Don't let me figure out you've got a issue with my delivery or my item not showing up. Now, ideally, you want to get it right at the forefront. When I come to your website and try to purchase items, you tell me it's not available, or you give me exactly when it's going to be available, or you let me subscribe to its availability. But if you don't have that, at the minimum, if you let me make the mistake of going all the way through that buyer journey and purchasing the item, then be proactive. And that's one thing where the customer platform really differentiates, because we have this data about the customers and their orders, is you can do something. And I'll give you a quick example. We have a cosmetics brand that we've worked with now for almost 4 years that marketed a particular item, I believe it was a mascara, as a vegan product. They came to find out through the manufacturing process that it was actually contained beeswax, which by definition now no longer was a vegan product. They were able to search in customer for all the women that had purchased that particular item and were able to proactively reach out to them. So before the women even identified that it was an issue, they reached out to them and said, hey, we caught this as a mistake. Please do not use the item if this is counter to your principles. And here's a coupon code. And here's our list of our vegan products. Imagine that experience where you're not calling out the brand and you're not saying you made a mistake, and they're actually admitting it and coming to you, right? And we have a number of examples. We had one brand that had a sweater that they had designed that was actually not in line with their sizing charts. The medium was actually closer to a small, or maybe a small plus. And they proactively reached out to the women that had bought that sweater to let them know that they had made a mistake. And the reaction, the response was so positive, because you're telling me you made a mistake.
Right. Yeah.
And owning it as opposed to letting me figure it out.
Yeah, I love that. I love the proactive support. I think that's fantastic, because there's nothing better. I always think about even the shipping side, the fulfillment side, which is another, you talked about supply chain. I'm thinking about just the demands and the pressure that's going to be happening with FedEx and UPS and other carriers over the holiday season. And there's lots of interesting tools out there in the Shopify world that really can identify through API the whole journey of the particular order, and to proactively outreach, just so you know it's on hold right now because there's weather conditions going on in your market, or there's a cross-border challenge right now. We're on it, we know about it, but we're just letting you know. I think that is really, really intelligent technology, that it's doing exactly what you're talking about, just being proactive to these, and then like, oh wow, I had no idea that, yes, I want it quickly, but I had no idea that, because of the weather delay in Chicago, wherever, the FedEx hub is, it's just not making its way over, but hey, maybe another day we'll double check. And technology checking these sort of things, I think that's really, really, really amazing. So thank you for sharing that. So how can people learn about the customer platform? I guess this is kind of the end of the show where we can kind of, direct those listeners to say, hey, maybe now is the right time. From a Shopify perspective, there is times, no code freeze yet. I think it's same as with customer. If you're unhappy with your current platform, we'll talk about a migration path to something else, from something else to customer. But where can people go to, I guess, learn more about exactly what you can do and how you can help? Sure.
So, obviously, I think like any brand, we're on our website, which is customerwithak.com, and a number of different social media platforms where you can find us as well, whether that be LinkedIn or Twitter, etc. So Customer with a K. And I think, certainly follow me on LinkedIn, or just reach out to me on LinkedIn. So Vikas Bhambri on LinkedIn, and I'm more than happy to, kind of dive in deep with any of the topics we've discussed here. A lot of what we've talked about, I live and breathe it, and I know you do too, Steve, but for a lot of brands, what we're talking about can almost be daunting, because it's so disruptive to how they operate today. So really happy to have a casual conversation about how you can address these things. And we recently did a Getting Ready for a Holiday Season series, which is available online as well. Everything from, kind of a white paper that walks you actually through the process, and some other, podcasts and webinars. And we have a big conference coming up in November. It's our annual conference called Customer Now. It's on November 10th. It's free to sign up for, and it really will set this tone with so many amazing brands talking about their experiences, some keynote speakers from the CX world, really helping brands set up for 2022, because it's also going to be really interesting in 2022, because at different points of the year, there's going to be, different parts of the globe are going to be either, coming out of this thing or maybe coming out and going back in. And so really being agile and aware is really kind of the theme for that. And so that's kind of where I would recommend folks go to learn more.
Beautiful. I'll make sure all this is in the show notes for sure. Kustomer.com, link to the Shopify App Store. Link will be there. I'll make sure, same for this conference for Kustomer now, November 10th. I'll make sure that link is in there so you can sign up for free. I mean, that once again, more great education of brands that have, made the choice to use Kustomer, plus other thought leaders. I think I'm signed up already. So anything, life of learning, and, just absorb everything you can. We can't get in person. Thanks to Zoom and other platforms, we're able to get into these webinars and learn, from others. And I think that's amazing that people are willing to give back like you are today on the show. I understand that you'd also would like to share an offer. There's a couple different things. The conference we know about now. What about those that are on competing platforms or still using Gmail for support or other little add-on tools and things? What's the migration path and the offer that's available today?
Sure. We started this exercise about a year ago because we were hearing from so many people that were like, wow, we're really excited about this change, and we want to be part of this journey to deliver these amazing experiences. Unfortunately, we're tied into an agreement with an existing vendor, and we're kind of quote unquote stuck with it. And so we launched the Make the Switch campaign to really help brands move off of their legacy platforms. And so we're willing to buy them out to get them on to the latest and greatest so that no consumer is left behind, right? We really, our mission is to make sure consumers across the globe get the best experiences by the best brands. So Make the Switch, which will, as I said, we will buy out your existing agreement with your legacy vendor and allow you to move on to something even greater.
Beautiful. Well, what I'll do is I'll have ecommercefastlane.com/customer. That's going to redirect to the landing page to the buyout offer, more of a lead capture on your side so we can make some introductions of those that are interested in, number one, probably getting a demo. Number two, seeing what the migration path can look like, and then getting the details of their existing offer, and then going down that journey of having the buyout happen. And I'm assuming there's some kind of a white glove service available to help people. I'm sure there's a self-serve model, but for those more, in the mid-market enterprise brand, I'm assuming you have some kind of a migration path and some onboarding available to those folks.
No, that's exactly right. We have a team that walks you through the people, process, and the technology migration, because yes, we need to make sure those agents are equipped to use a new platform. We want to use this opportunity to not just do what you're doing today, but improve the process. Maybe as I said, this is an opportunity to deliver proactive service. And then ultimately, we handle all the technology migration, migrating all those legacy customers and tickets and all that information that you don't want to leave behind. So absolutely, we take care of all of that as part of this process.
Beautiful. Well, Vikas, thank you so much for coming on the show today. One thing that I'm sure you know this, but Shopify really has a mission, and it really is to make commerce better for everyone. And, it's very clear that Kustomer is also in tight alignment. I mean, you're a Plus technology partner for a reason. I know that you want to help brands to improve efficiencies. It's very, very clear. Definitely want to help them grow revenue. I know your platform, I'm just very clear today. I've learned so much. You really are helping brands just to create these incredible kind of customer experiences. And I just wanted to thank you for sharing your knowledge and your vision today and just giving back to the Shopify ecosystem.
Steve, thank you so much for having me. And it's really been a pleasure talking about what we do and how we can continue to help brands innovate and disrupt.
Have yourself a great day. Now, this episode was brought to you by Attentive, a personalized text message solution trusted by innovative brands like CB2, Coach, and thousands of Shopify brands. Now, as I mentioned, on average, Attentive customers see a 25x ROI, and over 18% of their online revenue is driven by SMS. Now, are you ready for SMS to become one of your top revenue channels? You can learn more how to get started and get your free trial by requesting a demo at AttentiveMobile.com. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you, a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, launch, grow, and scale with Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.